All right. Welcome to the Spincast Cycling Show. I'm Brian Kelson, Lisa Vries. No Brian White. He's balling down in the St. Vincent, St. Bart's. I don't know where he's doing something with his wife. That's vacation. So we have a guest who is known to the e-cycling world as the second in command at IndieVelo. How about that? That's a terrible intro, but we'll get into it more. But the thing is, this is how amazing this show is. Not really that amazing. He just invited himself like on Thursday. Hey, do you want me to come on the show? That's how you get on the show. Welcome, Bjoern Ossenbrink. Yes.
Hi guys.
Did I say it correctly? Ossenbrink.
Yeah.
All right.
Can. My father-in-law always said the brink of awesomeness. No, sorry. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Not bad, huh?
Yeah.
And actually, my wife today, she got a Mother's Day present, which my daughter saw on the internet. This puzzle of bears, where you have a Papa bear, Mama bear, and two kids bears, and a dog bear, and the heart in the middle, and the heart says Ossenbrink.
Yeah.
Not Ossenbrink, Ossenbrink. Anyways, yeah. Side story.
Hold on one second. I forgot Mother's Day.
Oh, really? What? Yeah.
I just texted my mother. So
there you go.
There you go. Hey, it's live on thing. I forgot that. I didn't really forget, but yeah.
You're lucky.
I forgot to do it in the morning. I'm doing it now.
You're lucky I invited myself.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to get into it, but the main thing is how did you get into cycling? I think that's the first thing, is most people want to know, like, how did you get into cycling? Why is cycling your sport? And why are you so deeply invested in it?
It's a good and long story. Originally from Germany, as some of you might know, based on my accent. And
the little flag in IndieVelo.
Right, but sometimes it's Canadian too.
Oh.
I flip-flop. Even so, I'm not a Canadian. I'm only a resident here.
Okay.
It's a different story. It's hard to get the dual citizenship if you have a German nationality. If you apply for another one, you lose your German one. So it's, the benefits of having one or the other, or I don't know. Anyways, cycling about 1986. I was something around 10 years old, plus minus. I got a mountain bike, and this was really early in Europe to have a mountain bike, because the scene in North America on the state just had kicked off really, and in Europe they were pretty damn new. So I had a mountain bike, a buddy of mine had a mountain bike, and my older brothers had a mountain bike, so we rode mountain bikes.
What was the mountain bike?
A German brand called Hercules.
Oh, still around?
That is a good mountain bike name.
Yes, they actually still exist. Don't make mountain bikes anymore, but this was more like a street type mountain bikes with fenders and lights, because my parents wanted something I could ride to school with and be safe. Within a week, the fenders came off, the lights came off, the tires had this middle bar in the middle, like a smooth bar continuously. Mm-hmm. There was no thread in the middle, no knobs. Me and my buddy had a similar bike. We took a knife and cut a thread into this middle bar to make it more aggressive. Customization back then. The kickstand came off, all of the stuff. So then we went riding, and my next oldest brother, he was 6 years older. He had some money saved up himself already. He bought himself a Specialized Rockhopper in '86. So he had a cool bike.
That is a cool one. And so the thing with the tire, really quick, is that like your first sort of like customized modification? Like, hey, I want to improve this thing for me because with what you have?
Yeah.
Oh.
Good, huh?
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. And then we went to a BMX track with the bikes, learning how to jump a little bit and to ride in the woods, and no helmets, nothing.
No, the 80s. I don't think the helmets existed.
No. You would just ride and send it.
Yeah.
It's basically, you're in California, but Lee's in Victoria. If you think about the 90s free riding scene out of BC, Vancouver had a big one on the North Shore, and Kamloops, where we live, there was also a free riding community, just mountain bikers going crazy down anything. That's what we did in Germany in our woods. We would just ride anything. being kids.
Just all day for the freedom of just riding
we came
around.
home from school, got on the bike, called my buddy up, regular phone dial. Hey, want a bike ride? Parent answers, "Oh, you want to talk to your friend?" I said, "Yeah, you guys want a bike ride?" I said, "Yeah, okay, just meet him."
Yeah, exactly.
Let's ride over and meet him. Anyways,
I think we're about the same age. The way you're saying, I was 10 years old in 1986.
Yeah, 48. 76 was a good year.
Yeah, it is a very good year.
Yeah. Anyway, so
you progressed.
So I rode, and then I got a little bit into. I think when I was 13, I got into mountain bike racing. There was this little mountain bike racing scene started. There was a road racing club, but they added mountain biking to it, and I raced as a junior mountain bike. And didn't last long for whatever reason. I think because I did track and field basketball at the same time as well. But kept riding bikes always. And over this time, I got my next bike, which was a stump jumper in 92. Still a hardtail, and then I upgraded it, modified it, put a suspension fork in it, and then started really racing again in the mid-90s. Again, only mountain bike, because I stopped playing basketball. My back was too much messed up, and kept racing mountain bike from there on. Mostly local scene, then some higher league series. Then went to a couple World Cups in the early 2000s, cross-country World Cups. Raced Roland Green, Victoria, Island back then. Big Canadian.
Yeah, for Canadian mountain biking, that is a very big name.
Yeah. There was a bunch of this era guys were out there. And also raced on the road a little bit more at this point. I was a student at this point and needed some extra cash, and it was fairly easy to make a couple $100 on a weekend doing a criterium or a road race. And started also picking up cyclocross, which I developed a really big passion for. And 2001, 2002, as a student, put down each year about 100 race days with no break. Well, it's like nowadays, people race 300 days a year indoors, but this was all outdoors.
But that outdoors, you have to travel. You have to go to the race.
Yeah, I was busy. Yeah, I raced like super prestige cyclocross races, like the highest ranked racing in cyclocross in the Netherlands and in Belgium. From where I was living, about 4 or 5 hours to most of these events, and it was a weekend affair, and I had to take my dad or my brother with me as my support crew to clean my bike with a bucket and a brush. And then you had guys like Sven Nys and Richard Groenewegen, and like the big cyclocross heroes back in the day had their 10 mechanics with 3 pressure washing the bike every lap, and my dad was brushing with water and anyways, but it was fun. It was good. Yeah. And then cycling brought me to the States, to Texas, where I did my master's degree at the university. Was part of a cycling team there, Midwestern State University, and met my wife, who's born in Vancouver. She went to the same school for cycling as well, and raced collegiate nationals in Berkeley in 2003. And in 2005 in Kansas, I think it was. Yeah, I just kept bike riding this way, and then toned it down in 08, 09. I was injured for a while and got back into it in maybe 2014, 15, but more mountain biking back then again, because I figured out I'm living in BC at this point. I want to actually experience BC, so I should mountain bike again. And since the last time I really mountain bike raced, mountain biking had evolved from 2003, 4 to 2015. Bikes had gotten really big and technology had evolved a lot. So it was something really new for me. And then I think and then along this time, getting back onto the bike, that's when I also joined Zwift and started riding online. But the interesting thing is, because I'm motivated by racing, my first 2 rides on Swift were races.
Yeah.
Not even a ride. I just got on and I said, there's racing, let's race. So
Yeah.
I did 2 races, back-to-back days. And I said, okay, that's fun.
Yeah.
And
so you never really trained inside for your competitive racing, or you
so
did?
I mean, you know what a lot of people think about professional cyclists when they train, that they like to ride their bikes. And that's what
Not
I
always,
was.
but yeah.
That's
I'm
what
with you.
they like to ride outside. That's what I was. I would, in the years 2000, 2001, there was times when at the winter it was 1-2 degrees Celsius outside. You just put the clothing on and ride 6 hours.
Yeah.
Have fenders on the bikes already back then, and meet some buddies, and you go ride. There was a period I moved from my university town. I was studying back then in Germany. I moved back home because it was cheaper for me. And I had 3 days per week classes. I would get up at 6. I studied sports science. Got up at 6, got on my bike, rode my bike to school, 95K.
To school.
To the university. Yeah. Got there around 9. It was, most of our lectures were in a gymnasium because there were a lot of classrooms attached to it for sports science. Had a quick shower. I had a locker there. Sat in the classroom, the seminars for about 2-3 hours, just eating the whole time and learning stuff. Then finished off, put my cycling clothing back on, got on the bike, rode home. Usually extended my ride home that I would get a 200K in per day for the days I commuted. An hour away from home, I would call my dad up and say I'm an hour away. When I got home, based on the weather, he had either a bath ready for me or food was ready sitting on the table. And yeah, that was.
So you love cycling.
The life of a student as a cyclist, riding 100 race days and probably putting about. I still have an old training log, a big wall calendar where I wrote all my volume on. And recently, last year when we went back, I looked at it, and I had this 1 year where I rode 34,000 kilometers outside a year, including.
So you enjoy cycling?
Yes, it's
okay.
fun. It's
maybe just a bit.
Just a bit.
Well, no, I mean now.
But and I'm with you. I didn't put those numbers up. But when I was getting back into cycling, because I got in. I had friends that were into it, and when Lance Armstrong was doing stuff, they started working at bike shops. I started getting bike stuff from them.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, go ride with us. I'm like, okay, I've never clipped into pedals, all these things. And all of a sudden I had I had a stump jumper. So I was doing like, oh, I'll buy a mountain bike to ride around the area and maybe go ride a mountain bike on the mountain. But I never liked riding inside. So Zwift, or the first indoor cycling experience, the race, was the first, and the reason why you decided to stay doing stuff was because of the racing?
Yeah.
Because you didn't do rollers, you didn't do anything before that. Like you just rode outside.
I remember in 2000, in the winter of 2000, 2001, my friend a really good friend who owns a bike shop I used to co-own, he told me, oh, Elite is coming out with these cool new rollers. They are more immersive and have power on it. It was Elite Axiom rollers, like a trainer with a big drum at the back. It already measured power.
Right, yeah.
And I said, okay, cool, maybe I should try it. And so he ordered one for the store. I used it. I brought it home, put it up, rode 5 hours on this thing. Next day I went back
total or in one
ride. Well, back in the day, nothing under 5 hours was a training ride. So it was, anyways.
So just music or nothing? Music or a TV show?
Nothing. And just sitting in my room with the thing on there, the window open, and just sitting there. Anyway, I brought it back, and I said to him, I can't do this indoors. Even if I would watch TV, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Just train. And yeah, so I never went back to ride indoors. I had some rollers I would do warm-ups on. I mean, a cyclocross race. Cyclocross race, we would go with, we had a Sprinter van, and in the back of the Sprinter, I had some permanent rollers installed, which was sitting on the floor bed of the van, so I could just throw my bike back on and just warm up in the dry. But that's about it. There was no interest. I used indoor cycling technology and equipment for some of my degrees. I mean, in Texas, when I did my master's in applied exercise physiology, I did an extensive study on the effects of pedal float on power output in individual cycling performance. So how much float affects.
Oh, I see.
Power
that's
in
an
the time
offline
trial.
conversation.
Anyways, yeah. So, but I use CompuTrainers there.
Right.
And I use CompuTrainers, and I use the CompuTrainers 3D sim world with the the little blue ghost in this CompuTrainer world, which would ride on a course you could program using this course builder. You could build a course on the CompuTrainer software. Was super cool because you could create any course using these little bridges and straight roads, corners, and inclines, and all this stuff, and then you could ride, and then the next ride you would do, you could compete against your best. So that's what I used for some of my studies, for my research, but that was the only reason for it. Oh, there's your dog.
Yeah, this is the dog. She's
yeah,
special guest. She's like, what are you doing in here?
Yeah.
But yeah.
So this in 2004, I used indoor cycling technology with in the 3D environment.
For studies.
For
but
studies,
you were like, I don't really want to be doing this for yourself personally, but you saw the potential then, or no?
I always thought it's cool, and I always thought it would be cool to race somebody one-on-one against, not just your old PB.
Did you ever try that? Do you know about it? And if you do, have you tried that Nintendo that was modified? There was a cartridge that was modified to work on CompuTrainer. No. So they had a Nintendo console game. We can search it and look for it. Lee, you might want to bring it up, but people are selling it because it's like a Nintendo collector's device, but it's like you could race CompuTrainer on the Nintendo.
Ooh.
It wasn't against computers or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was like that was the thing that's like sort of like would inspire me if I was wanting to ride inside, but I didn't. I was sort of like a amateur who was like, oh, I like riding and rainy, but I wasn't like literally training to race. I would just show up to races and not really do well. I was, entry novice level or whatever. I didn't get back into it until like 2016, and I joined a club and I got serious and I was older, but I rode outside all the time. It was cold. I wasn't as cold as Germany or wherever you were.
Yeah.
But I was adverse to riding inside. I would only do like rollers if I wanted to. The only time I ever started riding inside is because I crashed in a race and I fractured my clavicle, and they're like, you can't be outside riding for, you got to a week or so, or 2 weeks. And that's when I got into Zwift. And so you got into Zwift, did a race. I'm driven by racing. I don't know what Lee's driven by. Yeah, that's it right there. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So scroll down. That's like that's the for the audio only audience.
So this is way before even CompuTrainer did their multi-rider setup.
Yeah. So like a company used CompuTrainer and plugged it in. You see the little thing on the controller, plugged it in, and then the screen. I don't know if you can scroll down. You'll see the screen. So somebody's selling it for like $1,000 now because it's like a Nintendo complete. Like people buy Nintendo games to collect Nintendo games, so you can't really buy it if you want to. Like, I wanted to play this just to see how stupid it was.
Yeah, Racer Mate Challenge too.
That's it. Yeah, there you go. So it's like the riding inside was like not something I wanted to do, but it was against my
type of games.
Yeah, that type of game. I have those too. They're right back there.
Super Mario 3.
Yeah, I have mine's right back there. As you can see, there's mine.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
They were old.
Oh yeah.
But the you doing the 2 races.
Yeah.
Then, what sort of lift off for you to be involved in the community stuff? Was you wanted to do more racing, or you wanted to help improve the thing? Like, what's your path to like essentially Zada, right?
So I signed up for Zwift in 15, didn't use it until 16 with my 2 races, and didn't have the proper setup back then really yet for me to fully enjoy it. It was just on
So what was the first race with?
Richmond Loop.
The Richmond Loop, but what was the equipment you used? Were you on a
used the
dump train?
kicker. I had OG kicker already.
okay, kicker.
Because I always, along the years, with what I was doing as an exercise physiologist, I always had cycling ergometers for testing athletes.
Ah, okay.
Oh, and when the first direct drive smart trainer came up, I got one of those, and I was also retailing and distributing power meters at this point to athletes, providing them to them. So anyway, so
you're a coach as well, as people don't know. Like not only your
my main business,
yeah, main business
for 20 years now, roughly, and so I just kept on racing. I think in 17, 18, just raced 300 races in these 2 years or something. One of these typical passes of you love racing, you just race and race every day, and you just kill yourself nearly every night.
Right? Yeah. That's I did that too.
And then CVR came along, or I saw the CVR thing, CVR World Cup with Frank Garcia, and my wife also being a former Canadian national team cyclist. She also started to ride after we had our 2 children. So she wanted to get back into it more, and she started racing Swift. And then we said, we should race CVR. Got a second smart trainer then. It was around 17, which was an OG Neo, Tax Neo. And then we raced the Pacific time PM 8 o'clock CVR races at the same time. She in the women's, me, I was in the men's one. So there was our weekly highlights, getting beaten in the CVR.
This is the CVR Arcade races.
CVR World Cup it was called back then,
But it was CVR World Cup on Swift?
On Swift, yeah.
Okay, so you didn't do the CVR Arcade thing where people would crash and...
No.
You never did that, okay.
So CVR Arcade, and then the 1 year we pushed really hard, and you would get extra points for your racing if you would stream yourself, because it added credibility. So it was back then for me just only running a MacBook, and for Swifting I think we already used Apple TVs back then, 18, 19 I think they already were out, and the software was already working on it then. I had a MacBook with a webcam set up, which would then go into the streaming software for CVR, but it would show both of us at the same time riding, which was enough to get extra points for the additional bonus points for the races. And anyways, because the whole attraction was that in the highest categories you would qualify to this live event.
Right.
And I think in 2019 the live event was in Vancouver. So we tried hard. I missed it. My wife missed it by one spot, and one of the ladies unfortunately crashed, and so there was a spot open, and then since we were local, my wife got in for the Vancouver CVR event, so I got to experience the CVR event in Vancouver live while she was racing, not being fit, but got to meet Lionel Vuesen there in person the first time after only seeing him ride virtually a lot of times. And this was a time when I saw the CVR race, CVR World Cup, the potential or the attraction of virtual cycling if it's set up right, and also became more involved because I got to meet the whole draft team back in the days, which was Greg Leo, Scott Cunningham, Adam Zimmerman, a bunch of those guys, which were riding all for draft, and I got to meet Greg pretty well. And Greg and I were chatting, and then Greg got me involved into the volunteer ZADA group because it was 2018, it was. The community verification thing became pretty big and more important because Swift racing became bigger in 18, quite substantially bigger. So I got involved in the community ZADA group and got...
And this is, so just the origin of the ZADA group, which is the Swift Anti-Doping Agency or association?
They called it Swift Anti-Doping something. I have no idea the original name anymore.
But it was volunteer only.
Yeah, it was founded by, I think, Johnny Noblet, who actually works for Swift. So
okay.
Back then he didn't, but then he might have already, but he founded volunteer only, and they use Swift Power, they use Simple Flex, I think 5 watts per kilogram, 20 minutes, and 6 watts per kilogram, 5 minutes, or something like this. Yeah. And if somebody would exceed it, then they would be flagged on Swift Power, and then they would be contacted to prove it by in real life efforts or something like this.
Now, was this because there was people doing things that were that you're like, hey, doesn't make sense? Or was it like, hey, we just want to have this because it's something that we should have? Or was it like, did it spawn from issues? Or did it?
I think
it parallel.
Yeah.
It spawned from people suspected to be manipulating things.
Yeah, and people wanted to create a more fair system of this whole racing experience on Swift. Mostly on the high end level, as you can see, there was limited on top end performances, but nothing on the low end performances.
Right.
So
it was just community led.
Yeah, I got involved with a friend I made through it. We changed the system, how it was working a little bit. Back then, also the Swift Power, James Hodges and Glenn Knight changed the backend a little bit for us to work with it easier, created backend communication for us to the riders with it. But throughout this time when I got involved, we went through the big backlog of people who had a ZADA flag, because there was, at this point in the middle of 2018, there was 250 people who were flagged on Swift Power, and all the results would be annulled. And because there was not enough manpower to review all these riders and communicated with them. So we went through going through all these riders, communicating with them, trying to solve their issues. It was sometimes also problem solving, really, just with the setups and all this stuff. And there was some riders who were really pushing back against what we were doing, where we questioned them, and then there was some legal threats coming from these riders as well towards us. And that's when we consulted with an international lawyer, and he basically said, well, yeah, you guys shouldn't be doing what you're doing with all this data stuff.
Right. So it was a data thing.
Yeah.
And so when did, well, how did you solve that?
So we said we're stopping.
You're stopping. Okay.
We will stop what we're doing. And Leo was still involved, and then Greg at this point was in communication and working with Swift already, building the KISS Super League, which was the first elite racing league. Got the head of legal back at this point to be in contact with me, who we talked and we chatted. We talked about the potential of doing verification, what it can bring, where it can go to. And then at this point, the pathway was that Swift was taking on ZADA underneath their wings, and then they renamed it fairly quickly after we brought it under the wings.
Can I go back a little bit with when you guys were getting, from a community standpoint, when you guys were getting data, collecting a bunch of data that, obviously is people's personal data, right? You're not a company, you're not the ones that make the game.
Yeah.
How were you getting that data?
Through Swift Power.
Through Swift Power, but Swift Power had an agreement with Zwift, or was it sort of like just leaking out of Zwift because Zwift coding? I'm not trying to bash Swift.
I don't know what Swift Power back then had in form of an agreement with Swift. I have no idea what the deal was, because Swift Power was purely built based on the community effort from James and Glenn back then, and they were not owned at this point by Swift Power. What the agreement was, I had no idea, but we communicated with riders on the back end and then basically asked them for in real life files, which the riders then agreed to send us or not, because that came through mutual stuff. But there was, of course, the whole thing about Swift Power data, that Swift Power, or that Swift data was on Swift Power and was accessible for basically anyone.
Right. So
it's still available for anyone, because there's easy ways to pull anybody's fit file or dual recording off the Swift Power side.
Right, getting it from Zwift Power, but you can't get it from Zwift directly. So was Zwift involved? Or did you guys when you were dealing with the international lawyer and trying to figure out, hey, are we in a legal space where we don't want to be? Did you guys contact Zwift to say, hey?
Yeah, well,
Greg. Okay.
Greg did, and then Greg, and then basically we said we stop this what we are doing because we have no interest in this confrontation or.
Right. Yeah. You're just doing it as a community. You're doing it as a service, as being
exactly.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, and yeah, and so I mean, there was back in the original Zada. I mean, they already had to deal with this stuff as well. I mean, there were threats going on against the original Zada. I mean, there was community guys on Zada who are still out there, just doing a lot of Swift streaming.
Yeah,
and I mean, yeah, people who are out there, they can say that they were part of original Zada or not. I'm not going to say who was part of it.
Right, but so the opt-in on Zwift,
yeah,
to send your data to Zwift Power, and you're pulling data from Zwift Power, the community didn't have an agreement with Zwift Power, is what I'm trying to say. Is people are okay with the legalese or the legal that's going from, hey, I'll go to Zwift and I'll opt in to go to Zwift Power, but it stops there, and that's where you guys were getting. Okay, I got you now. Okay. So now now you've gotten folded, or Zada became this is one of my questions is, were you guys like your own little entity, or were you involved or in Zwift under Zwift's umbrella?
So Zada
were they hands off, or
Zada was taking the let's call it the name Zada was taken on by Swift.
Okay.
It was renamed to Swift Accuracy and Data Analytics. Somebody at Swift had the idea that Zada, the 4 letters, could be standing for this, which was brilliant to keep the name.
Oh, yeah.
You know, marketing.
Acronyms are huge in Zwift.
Marketing did really well there.
Oh, yeah.
And and from this, I was contracted out. I have a business. My business was contracted out to do the work for Swift underneath their Zada.
Gotcha.
Name, call it.
Right. They hired you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then I had a group of employees or subcontractors who would work for me and do stuff with me.
And that was handling all the data. So you were legally under the umbrella.
And from there on, then things went to the point that, okay, there was Swift built an extra server for Zada, which they had control of with all the data stuff. So everything went through this, through the Swift data compliance, and everything became, legally really solid.
Yeah.
No more issues, which was great.
Which is great. Now I have a question from my personal opinion is, it's great when you hear, oh yeah, Zwift is doing all this stuff, but from a person who's like, that should be the difficult thing, or the gray area is having the game be a part of the whatever certification or verification, sort of like, hey, is there bias? Because like the way RGT approached it was, they're like, hey, we make the game. And they had the sort of eBio passport and all the community doing that, kind of handling it. And it was like a third party officially, where you could see, hey, this is great that Zwift is taking all this stuff, but then it could be like, hey, if you feel that it's biased. So what was your take on that?
Yeah. Over all these years, we pushed to develop something which would become more independent.
Right. Okay.
But that's what always a big end goal.
Right.
At this point, just because certain things take investment.
Yes.
And doing doping research, or in this case, data analytics for cheating, you can't get it funded really easily. So
no.
That's one of the. I mean, with the doping too. I mean, I have talked with the director of WADA a few times, discussing the work we've been doing with data analytics in regards to cycling and what WADA does, and the biological passport stuff and statistical analytics and these type of things. So, but to get to for WADA to receive funding is not an easy task as well. No. So it's one of the crappiest things to be in business for.
Right. And so for me, I was thinking, because I think I touched Lee, I don't know how long ago we were talking about how, or maybe it was on my stream, about it shouldn't be like the UCI running things. It shouldn't be this thing. It should be like the writers union, the CPA should be like, hey, we want to govern our own selves, so we have a little bit of more pull when we go to like a UCI, or we go to a Zwift, or where we go to, because the writers should want to govern themselves and go like, hey, these are the tests we want to do. Because I remember the topic that I brought up was I hate doing tests.
Yeah,
I'd rather race, right? So like having to do a power test really mentally messes with me. So I had to do one for the Zwift games, and I had to do one for my Whoosh, and I've had to do one for Echelon Racing League on RGT or wherever you wanted to do it. I'm okay with doing the test, but why can't we get all the same one test for one rider to get this sort of power thing? And if you have to do it every couple months or whatever, like a quarterly thing, instead of like, hey, Zwift Games needs their thing, IndieVelo needs their thing, RGT needed their thing, Echelon, you know, that sort of thing. It's like, I don't want to do 3 different tests because I don't like doing tests.
Since we switched things over with the verification point and basically put it underneath the IndieVelo umbrella for Zwift Games, for example, if rider approached us, we accepted the Whoosh power test.
Right.
If the data was properly there, we because at the end the test is copied off.
It's a little variation. Echelon had a variation off of the Zada power test. So I was annulled. I don't know if you know this. I was annulled from the first Zwift Games race.
I would have to pull up a server.
You can pull it up. You know how I was annulled? You know why I was annulled?
Right now, yes.
Yeah, I know. Well, I think George is the one who annulled me because he sent me an email. I just was lazy. I came in last because I wasn't elite. Like I'm a masters racer.
Yeah.
And I forgot to put my dual power in or send it in within the hour.
2 hours.
That's the reason why I got annulled. So I sent it later.
You never sent one in at all.
No, I didn't send one in, and I was just like,
right. I remember your email going back to George. That's fine.
Yeah. I was like, hey man, I'm sorry. Yeah. So
it wasn't for the one annulment, you would have won the whole thing.
I would have. Well,
I got up all your points.
Oh,
I showed it. Yeah, there you go.
You have something else here too. I had an issue with my heart rate monitor at the beginning and throughout.
Yes.
I stopped and changed heart rate monitor from dual Garmin and plus only heart rate I used in N2 to BLE bridge. Oh gosh, the bridges. Hey, there you're going. Suspicious. I have a video of my change during the race. Anyways,
See?
Yeah.
That is awesome. That it's right there, that accessible. Amazing.
Well, that's my email here. He sent it to
I probably sent it. I sent it to him. I probably sent it to whatever Zwift Control or whatever it was, or Zodic or IndieVelo Control.
No, you send it right to George, and then me to me directly and to Pathway. Yeah.
I sent. See, I'm all.
And then he wrote your welcome apologies again for not posting my dual recording within the required time period. I just lost interest after being dropped so quickly and was negligent. Lots of live stuff going on last week. I have learned from my mistake.
Oh, that is awesome.
There you go.
What's funny is hearing it again, because we heard this the first, second, third time.
There was probably a lot of drama when he first got it on.
God. I was just like, I got dropped so fast.
We turned it into a drinking game of how many times Brian would say annulled.
Yeah.
I was annulled. It's like,
So, but it's great to see that you guys are like, hey, that's progress.
Yeah. So anyways, which brings the story through we did Zwift Zada. All these years helped, of course, the verification. And as we talked about it, criticism is completely fair and nothing is perfect, and our systems are not perfect from the point of that the way how we have to receive the data, process the data, and then can analyze it all within our limits of time and contracts and work. It was just, we could only really closely verify a handful of riders every race, besides checking things like, okay, are the dual recordings coming in? Was the heart rate connected? This is all what happened back end afterwards. There was a lot of manual data processing, just exporting CSVs, running CSV, writing scripts for this stuff, and a lot of tedious works.
Because as a writer, you're only having to do like one thing for you.
Yeah.
But if they're having let's say you have 10 riders that are questionable, you then have to ping 10 riders to go, hey, I need this dual, and you're chasing 10 things at all different times, right?
But that's just think about riders pre-verify, they're pre-verified to allow to race.
Yeah.
When riders would be pre-verified from Zada or from us now, it doesn't mean that you have the green card to do whatever you want.
Exactly.
But some people always misunderstood. But so they were pre-verified on equipment, so on their Wahoo Kicker, with a specific serial number. So now they race, and in the race they use Bluetooth. Bluetooth has a specific Bluetooth code identifier for their unit, but the Bluetooth code identifier actually, when decrypting it through into a decimal number, because it's hexa, you use a hexadecimal to a decimal number, you can get the serial number out of it. So now you have 100 racers with 30% using AND+, where you can kind of get the serial number a little bit easier through. And then you have the other ones on Bluetooth, which you only have this Bluetooth code for the trainer there. So then you have to, every of these codes, you have to decrypt to match then the serial numbers they are pre-verified on.
Actually, that brings to actually audience question from Barney. Bluetooth.
Hey, James.
Do you have concerns with using the Zwift app as a Bluetooth bridge?
Ooh.
Stumped him.
Yeah.
Because it sort of leads to what you were just saying about the Bluetooth. But yes, you can
he means
use...
the companion. He means the companion app.
Yeah,
of course. Yes. I mean, I think he probably should know that before the Zwift games, we disallowed using the Bluetooth app to be the device to connect to the equipment to.
Interesting.
I just had to quickly think about the Zwift app, meaning the companion app, I assume he means. Yes, there is a concern. I cannot share why there is a concern. But yeah, we stopped allowing the companion app.
Don't make this an exclusive, or like a failure. Don't what is it? Violate your NDA, buddy.
Yeah.
Well, anytime you're going with an extra step, there's always a possibility of that extra step.
Yeah, of course.
Intercepted.
I mean, I believe, I'm not trying to speak. Well, I'm going to try to speak for everyone. Having like a direct connection, like USB directly connected to the device that's actually running the application is probably the best, right? Or some sort of way where it's like there's no bridge, there's no like dongle or whatever. It's like if you could just have a straight connection connected to it would be the best. But since we have wireless, we have this. There's no, those are the things where it's like some things light up more versus just a regular ANT plus, even though it's not as efficient, right? So like things are improving of race mode and Bluetooth connectivity, stronger Bluetooth, or what is it, direct connect. I love direct connect. I don't like batteries and stuff like that, but my heart rate is wireless. Like we can't have wired heart rates.
There's also the world of power matching, using your power meter and run it through the Smart Trainer app as a power match app. And the Smart Trainer companies who offer this service actually have a code which can track this.
Yeah.
It just needs to be implemented in the game so that it can be tracked, and which one at the end is one of the reasons also why IndieVelo was built.
Okay, that goes in. Okay, this goes in.
One of the reasons why IndieVelo was built, because we needed to test what is actually possible.
That was my next question. Why IndieVelo?
So basically, with my work at Zada, starting in officially under the Zwift umbrella with the kickoff of the KISS Super League, I think it was January 2019, with all the professional cyclists. Charlie did a huge amount of work to get a professional cyclist, only professionals, to race indoors, plus the community teams, the all-star teams, which was pretty cool. Like, there was, from this point, it was something unique to see. George came on, I think, a year later. He was brought in from the point of officiating and governance. And over all these years, my team kept on developing and working on a wish list. A wish list which we would like to see within or from a cycling game. And it basically would go from development tools, from like having so much data access that there's a passport.
So what's the number one? What was the number one thing? What started the list?
Build an athlete's data passport with requirements which are still not fully fulfilled, like full-on API, access, log file access, having a Strava scraper, which is like would be.
But what if the athlete doesn't go to Strava?
Exactly, yeah, but it's fine.
So I just wanted to know, like, you have a list, and it's good to see that it's growing. That the list, obviously.
Anyway, so this list was
this is the reason why I
key things: in-game dual recording, evaluation of hardware to create internal lists to obtain characteristics of equipment. So meaning proper testing for hardware. This was all started in 2019, this list. A separate results page for esports racing with running our automated tools, like we have a metric engine, which could analyze a lot more data way quicker. It has been developed, this engine, but it's 400 hours of private development work into this engine. So it's clearly not cheap. Then tools for live management of races, how race organizers can ensure that only riders who are eligible to race in an event will do so automatically without doing tedious manually work, going through a list, going through riders, kicking them, and making sure on the back end that the rider is connected to their smart trainer, not power meter, which before races like World Championships, Swift Games. On my end, this is, for Swift Games, 6 hours of my team's work just dealing with this stuff.
Yeah.
Like just 6 hours of making sure pairing information are always exactly correct while the race is going on. Tracking it when a rider enters the pen, as soon as the race starts, during the race, as soon as the race finishes. That all this stuff fits and works.
Yeah. So when you're doing, when you had this, you wrote this list, like you and I don't know, the core people were like, hey, we built this list.
Yeah.
We want Zwift to do this, or we want to do this. So like I wrote this down just right before we were getting on, like, is IndieVelo, like I'm thinking like IndieVelo is a testing ground, or it was an internal testing ground to see what you guys could do to start knocking off some of these things, right?
Well, and I mean, so this list went on even for in-game experiences with aspects like blob street, CDA models, auto braking around corners, dirt, rolling loops, a long rolling loop. I see a long rolling loop around Watopia is on here, and this was added in the fall of 2019. This comment, reduce speeds out of pens to when the timer starts, or a neutral starting point.
All the little pain points that we've had throughout the years and years.
I mean, most Swift racers, they have talked about this internally with their groups and teams anyways. Change of algorithm for sprinting in Swift. Anyways, too many.
That's my list.
A bunch of this stuff. So this was always requested from Swift as well, and we shared this with Swift, and at the end it was not in our hands. We just handed this over, and whatever would happen with it, happened with it. I mean, we don't have the power and the control to use.
Now, were you like, hey, we have this list. Hey, Zwift.
I would keep reminding about this list here and then, but at the end, my group was, and with Lords as well, we would only be communicating with certain people on the Swift end. And so I have no idea what happens behind the scene, and I don't want to speculate what happens about it and why these things were not implemented, if they can be implemented or not. So that's all left to
it's like
I think to Swift to answer if they really want to. But it's I mean, at the end, Swift works for what it does. But
then there got to a point where you're like, well, we're not hearing. Okay, we understand Swift is doing their own thing. We've sort of shared our views. We shared our thoughts. When did hey, maybe I could spool this up on my own, or was that a George thing, or was that a youth? Was that
20 last World Championships 2023 leading into it? George and I had a longer talk and said we really need to go independent after these World Championships. Just not for any more biasy, and the sport is growing, seems to be growing more. And Olympic talk was a little bit more on the schedule with the UCI, and we had meetings with the UCI back then, Lodge and I already, and so we need to go more independent in this. When Lodge said, let me think a little bit about it, and then we kind of said we have this wish list and so on, and then George at one point told me, I said, oh, here, download this. I said, okay.
Okay.
I said, what
So
is it? I said, just test it. I said, okay.
So when you were talking to UCI, you were just talking to UCI about governance, like but not about like, hey, we're spooling up our own little thing, or.
Well, we were saying that the performance verification part should be also become more independent.
All right. Okay.
Platform independent. This was way before the last bit went out, which my Whoosh then won. This was before the World Championships of 23.
Right.
Way before, and probably in the summer of 22. And and then at one point, George went to work, and
it's just George. He
went to work. Which is one of the things because of
this is my question.
IndieVelo, George has built other indie games.
Oh, he has. Oh, so he has.
He has built a VR game, virtual reality type thing, and then he has done some other VR games. You can, I think, find them on Steam or somewhere. I have no idea. So he went to work, and I mean, sometimes we talked about things with physics and drafting and what would be cool in platforms, and I kind of knew. And along the time, we talked, and with my team, we talked with him, and we always said, "Oh, it would be cool to build our own game to actually test this stuff, what we want." And then he just went to work and did it. And then he sent this to me, and I downloaded it, basically started it up, messaged him, "What is it?" He's like, "Oh, I just, I programmed something."
Yeah.
I said, okay, cool. So I said, is it functional? He said, yeah, there's, bots in there. Just go ahead. And first thing I saw events, or I don't think there was the events tab. I don't know how it worked. And there was a race in 8 minutes. I joined the race, did the same thing what I did on Swift. I did a race. And joined the race against the bots, and quickly checked everything in the UI settings with call it trainer difficult field, and I saw there's wind and all this stuff, and made sure I have it all set how I'm used to it, and raced. And I don't know, after 5 minutes I called my wife, "Come on, check this out, but don't tell anybody about it." She comes down, she said, "Oh, let me try." Anyway, so yeah, I just was just blown away first just from the physics engine, as early as it was back then. Everything else left out, graphics, how it looks, if it's a boring world or whatever. I never care about this much anyways, but I just was blown away from the physics engine of the way how everything worked. And then of course it was nighttime here, George was sleeping. The next day we talked, and I asked him what's all on the back end, how the things are set up, and what can we do additionally, because it was really, and I was alpha number one writing it. So
So when have you ridden other things? Did you do RGT? Did you my Whoosh way back in the day? Did you try? Did you try everything?
I was one of the early guys who was on the RGT Super Tester group. I don't know if you know about the group, which was called the RGT Super Tester group. And
I'm not on the in crowd like you are.
I talked with the fellow who owned RGT back then. I forgot his name.
Yeah, I remember the origin story. I guess he was at it's like 2016.
Alex Serban. I remember in 20.
He was at Eurobike.
Yeah, I talked with him at one point, again, just with this thing in my head about what is possible, how can you capture data more or less for verification points, and how can you make maybe the riding experience, I don't want to say realistic, but more engaging for a rider, just besides riding a hard tempo effort in a big blob. And so I chatted with him at one point quite, and then I was part of this super tester group, and that's when Magic Road started. Magic Road was just brought in there, and I tested this Magic Road a little bit. It was too complicated for me just to make sure my GPX files were smooth enough to fine tune every corner and get this weird stuff out. I said I had no patience for this. So I stopped it again.
Good, but the application of it at the beginning, at least I never did Magic Roads 1. I only did Magic Roads 2. Yeah. But the having to smooth it, and you'd have these weird things, but like the idea of it is innovative.
Yeah.
Right. So, but you had a physics idea from like doing the RGT stuff.
Yeah.
To go, hey, or you did Ruby, or you did what all the other stuff where you're like, hey,
I've tested every platform. I test every platform roughly once a month.
Okay.
Not necessarily writing. I just use my simulator or bot and write it. But sometimes if I see something cool, I go on it and want to test it in person, see how it feels.
Have you done Rolla?
Yes, 2 times in person. Just frustrated. The same thing what also frustrated me with the RGT app was the screen app.
Oh yeah. User interface. Once you get going, I actually did like, because I'm a physics guy. Like I want the simulated feel. Yeah. Right. There is something to that, but like the two app program. Oh, it's terrible.
Actually, the app I wrote the most next to Swift over the years was Be Cool.
I did Be Cool a little bit.
Yeah, because the physics engine was actually, or is actually from where they came from, not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about Crank Up? Have you done Crank Up?
Oh, see, that's I have. Yeah, on my simulator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lone. I think it's a lone German developer too. It's like
I think so. I mean, there were a lot of apps came through it. I mean, we have. As you know, we have a Discord group, but we have a way more private channel there with, call it the core content creator group or core group. And
the reason why
we have a forum which calls other apps, and in this other apps forum there. I'm just scrolling down. There's actually.
Did you try Connects?
Yeah, there is one.
I'm just gonna keep naming off the ones that I know.
There's 31. There's 31 apps. There's 31 apps in here. One from One Lab to Cycle Mania, to Simway Biathlon, to Move, to Bike Binder VR, Crank Up, Start Owner, and EXR rowing. Hey, that's what I do sometimes. I row on EXR. Really like it.
Oh,
Wingo, Be Cool, Spivvy, random apps, Kinix. Yeah, Kinix is on here.
Yeah.
Watch Fitness, which is a friend of mine out of Vancouver who built watchfit.com. Cool concept. Watching movies and using your excitement while watching a movie to change the resistance on your trainer. RGT, Intelligent Cycling, GTA Bike. Then there was Fondo, which seemed promising, but they shut down.
Yeah.
Virtual Pro, Vivo Race, Visu.
There's a bunch of them, but so
Riders of the Wild, cool name.
So let me get back to IndieVelo. I know we can keep going down there.
Yeah.
So you're doing alpha. You're the alpha. You and your wife, George.
Yeah.
You start to bring people in. Yes. What's the buzz? What's like the initial buzz of like the handful of people that start using it, and they know not to talk about it? You just talking amongst yourselves. What's the buzz like when this first happened?
Feature development and tool features within it, basically starting from the physics engines to customizable events.
That's what people wanted. They wanted more features, or they were like, "Hey, this is."
They wanted certain features which make it easy for somebody who wants to put an event, somebody who even just wants to write and race and analyze their own data, things like dual recording in game.
But it was so this was the initial, like the first month or so with IndieVelo Alpha or whatever it was.
A closed beta. That was closed beta.
Closed beta.
Alpha had this all in it already. Most of the stuff.
But then closed beta, people are like, "Hey, we want to do this. We want to do this." They did a lot of Zwift. What was it? Disgruntled. This is my assumption was that there was a lot of disgruntled Zwift people that started to voice their frustration and wanting to make a quote unquote Zwift 2.0. No. But that was the impression that I got. Yeah. I'm not saying that that's what you guys were doing. So that's what you're saying. No, of course, that's what you're saying. You're saying it right here. But that was my impression. And so I was not looking for a Zwift 2.0. And that's why I really have fallen in love more and more with IndieVelo this year, because I didn't join the founders until recently. But I was always like, the impression was, hey, we're just trying to get this influx, and now you're getting that now with people with the change in price, but you also got that with RGT. And when people are like, hey, they find out about IndieVelo, they come in with people want their wants. So, but how do you balance the requests for also what your goal is as you and George or George's, and we're trying to get George on as well.
Yeah.
To make your mission statement for IndieVelo was this list. And you're like, hey, how do you balance that?
Yeah. Well, the list with the goal of what do you need? How does it need to look to make it to the highest level in sports, meaning the Olympics?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's your mission. Your mission is to be an Olympic, to
hopefully have if it happens or not, you don't know, because it's not our part of our decision making. I mean, the UCI is on a mission of creating as many world disciplines for world championships as they can. Esports was added this winter. They added snow downhill biking. Don't ask me why. I mean,
you're a mountain biker.
And they have some cool governance going on after you finish the downhill mountain biking in the snow. It's like a giant slalom downhill course set up for mountain biking. And so there's an official, there's cool videos up, an official waits for them at the bottom, and they measure their spike length in their tires.
Yeah.
It's like sock length. It's like
also
anyway. So yeah, we don't know. That's why I said it's not fully in the hands of it. But how does not necessarily the platform has to look to make it to the Olympics, but what is involved on the back end to actually provide the credibility that the sport can make it there? Because that's at the end of the thing: is it credible enough to make it to the Olympics? Can it survive there? Can it survive at this high level? And and not everything will be in live person events. Olympics, World Championships are now in live person this fall, which is great. It's amazing. I'm super happy about it, because it's the next step up again.
But is there something to you creating something that the Olympics wants versus hoping to get in the Olympics? Like, if you make something that's so strong, like, hey, we made our sport kind of like gravel.
Yeah.
Like how the UCI and the Olympics are maybe going to take gravel from the essence of, like, hey, gravel is gravel. And it's the sport, the whatever essence of gravel, where you have the essence of e-cycling. Like, we govern ourselves, we do our things. It's this grassroots sort of thing. There's also something to that. What do you think of that? Or are you thinking solely based on like a large governing body to kind of like fold in e-cycling?
Yeah. I mean, to be realistic, if the sport of e-cycling being governed by the UCI makes it to the Olympics, it's not going to add more athletes to an Olympic Games, because the Olympics Games have more athletes than they can handle anyways already.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if e-cycling makes it to the Olympics as another discipline of cycling, there will be not new cyclists to the additional ones who are already going to the Olympics competing. I mean, this has to be, anybody thinking about it has to be realistic about it. There's enough track riders, velodrome riders, mountain bikers, and cyclists already going to the Olympics, and any of those would have enough skills, physiological abilities to also virtually race in front of a computer in a stadium. The Olympics could not handle bringing in another 40 e-cyclists, purely e-cyclists, just to do e-cycling. Mm-hmm. The cyclists would have to cross over to the sport, and it's just the way how the Olympics operate. Is it something what the Olympics wants? It all comes down to the end. How does the UCI represent this whole stuff, and how is it going to be presented over the next years? That's for me the biggest thing. If it becomes a global race series, global events, which happen more recurring, just besides this one-off event in the fall or in the spring, whenever World Championship happens. Mm-hmm. Or is it something which actually is way more attractive? I mean, at the end of the day, e-cycling, if some national federations are really supportive within the esports world and host their own national championships in live venues, and we have communicated with some of them, helped them with setups and try to help them with some credibility with leading into these national championships on Swift, like wanting to make sure that they get the right people to their live venues. And so they are promoting the sport. They are pushing the sport really hard to also offer events outside of World Championships. And even some series are happening from several, national federations. And they see the potential of growing their member base outside of the outside world. Let's say a federation like, let's say Denmark has 50,000 cyclists with a cycling license who race outside. Denmark actually is a really big country in the indoor cycling world with a lot of cyclists riding indoors. Yeah. And a lot of those have never held a cycling license for outside racing. So now if these folks want to race indoors and now need an indoor cycling license, the Danish Cycling Federation can go from 50,000 members to 175,000 members overnight, potentially.
Right.
And I think USA Cycling was talking about this at one point.
Yeah, Cycling Canada as well, because we had, I can't remember his name now. Lee, who's the guy that was on from Cycling Canada?
Josh
Peacock.
Yeah, he was great. And so
they see the potential. But I mean,
they see the potential for sure.
But at the end, they don't have the tools from the global governing body at this point to push it and promote it any further. I mean, they are doing what they can, but they're limited on their own budgets. And if Cycling Canada wants to put on 10 high quality esports races throughout the year, with some of them even in person, this will cost them a lot of money. And will they receive the growth, and will this help for the growth of the sport on the UCI level? I don't know. It's a good question.
So then that leads into, is it a game or is it a sport, or is it a combination of both? Like, are you gaming, or are you physically fit to be a sport person and you just get on the bike and ride, or is it a combination of both?
I think, there's a few different scenarios, what people see out of virtual cycling. There's a fitness crowd who just wants to ride virtually and enjoys it because they somehow like this concept better than doing the peloton concept, where they ride on their spin bike at home and have somebody instructing them on a little video screen. So they're the ones who are following this, and they're the ones who are training for in real life events, which is a really big crowd. They follow training plans, use coaches, and train on a virtual cycling platform this way. Then there's, of course, a social group of people who just ride virtually to stay fit in some form of way and mix some training into it, mix some racing into it. And then there's also the hardcore esports racer group, which some of them, like if you talk about, let's say, James Barnes, which are at the highest level of the sport with world championships, having gone to world championships and all so on, they're pushing hard. They're pushing hard to get to the next level. They are pushing that the sport moves on higher than world championships, and that there's more events on this type of level. And so if we go to your question, is it a game? Is it a sport? It's a combination of both, in my opinion. It just depends.
Yeah,
what's the individual's goal is, somebody who wants to race Olympics and world championships, for them it's a sport.
Yeah, we talk about it as being competitive versus casual. Yeah. There's a lot of casual riders that, like you said, just want to get a fitness or whatever. Yeah. And then there's competitive, which is where you guys, the whatever, anti-cheating, anti-whatever, I don't know, what do you guys call it? It's not anti-cheat. What is it? Like
performance verification, mostly.
Performance verification. Thank you very much. The performance verification, where a competitor like James Barnes will jump through the hoops and do all the things that need to be done, because they know that you guys on the back end have their best interest.
Yeah, and I, to be honest, talking about the hoops, I feel bad about the hoops the rider has to go through sometimes.
Yeah.
It's a big task for the rider to go through those. But as most folks can see out there, these hoops are necessary. Not only, they were built up throughout the SADA, throughout Swift, they're necessary, platform wide, across platforms even. I mean, other platforms, talking my whoosh has to put these hoops out there too, just to be able to create credibility. But of course, the way how the data is collected can change to make it easier for riders.
And that's
they
where
don't have to do the big tasks, and that's what we're always testing with IndieVelo. Again, going back to IndieVelo, we're testing what can we collect, that it also becomes less of a strain for athletes. And can this, what we develop and build, could this actually be implemented in any of the other platforms? That's also one of the things, because George says it always on the podcast, IndieVelo is a service provider for these type of services, and these services can be used from other platforms,
right?
If they want it or not. That's it comes down to the platform.
That's innovation, as you guys are pushing to, what is it? All tides lift all boats, or whatever. High tides lift all boats, or whatever that saying is. My question I have written down: can it learn over time? Are you guys having stuff where it's like, hey, can it? Because I was complaining about this, where I had to do like 2 different things. I had to do one for my whoosh, and I had to do one for for Swift Games or whatever it was. It was like, how do you guys not know who I am already? Are there plans for you to learn over time? Like, hey, we know who Brian is, and when there's something that flags up, that's when we contact him, which I believe you guys already kind of have. But
yes, it can learn over time, but one of the important things for it to learn over time as well is having way more access to data than what we would pull currently into verifying events and races. And I mean, just take the example recently, which was set, where we provide the verification services for the Swift Grand Prix, Swift Games. So riders went through pre-verification for Swift Grand Prix, and then there were Swift Games, and riders who were pre-verified for Swift Grand Prix did not have to do this again for the Swift Games. And we were able, throughout these events and throughout these races, we collect all the data from riders. If things come up as a flag, we ask riders for additional data. We might say, hey, can you provide us with some additional stuff? Or we even tell them, hey, this race didn't map out based on our backend, our data presented. Let's do some more testing, or maybe go to a lab test, which some riders have done happily and got tested in a lab, which a long list of requirements for the lab, which is also not easy because the lab then has to follow certain requirements as well. Anyway, so we use this type of system, and just recently some of the Canyon folks who are flagged on my whoosh was Lionel, Mikael, and Ollie Jones, I believe. And my whoosh flew them back out to actually do the same thing, do another test, a few different tests there. And, it's great example setting. They put the effort in, flew them out, did something in live in person, which is great. I think there's nothing to complain about this whole thing. Was this necessary to do this? If the systems learn and if the systems work together, no, it was not necessary. I messaged Lionel after and talked with him a little bit about it, and actually analyzed the data from his races, and I could verify the races within 5 minutes, because I had additional data points from him over all the time throughout the Swift Grand Prix and other points as well. Which
my whoosh didn't have, or we think.
I have no idea. I mean,
we think the way that you do your performance verification, you have data points that you can pull from, right? So okay, then a question is a hypothetical. A new rider shows up out of nowhere. You don't have a lot of data. How do you, is it, hey, just regular status quo? Like we verify them a certain way. We only have a couple races on them.
As an example, we had a rider for the Swift Grand Prix, was brand new, showing up. We got the data done throughout the critical power tests, plus received a few additional data points, and the data points, everything was not strong enough for the rider to even match what the rider had done within the most recent Swift racing, community racing.
Okay.
So the rider race community, but wanted to step it up, to join a team and race in the Swift Grand Prix. So
right, okay.
This rider happily volunteered after we asked him to do it to go to one of their local performance labs and did some performance testing there, which cleared the rider to pass through.
Okay.
Yeah. So I talked with the team management, had a Zoom call with the team management, 3 of the team, like team manager, director, plus additional support staff for the team was on there. We chatted this whole through. I said, this is what the rider should be doing. If the rider's happy to do this, then if you let the rider do it, and the rider went, did the testing. The lab provided all the data points we asked for, and it was all home-based in the country of the athlete. The athlete drove 30 minutes to the lab, independent lab as well, and passed the test. And then afterwards, we just asked a few questions why the critical power test didn't work out the way it should have been, and there was some health-related issues involved, which might have mapped things out a little better. So, anyways,
yeah. So currently, performance verification does not test like normal testing for people performance enhancing their bodies.
No,
it's just their data.
I volunteer myself if somebody pays for it to fly to your house and stand in front of your door with a cup.
You'll pay for it?
No, if somebody pays, maybe Lee will fund it that I fly to Brian's house and stand in front of his house.
I already talked about me.
No, I'm
Hey, I already pooped my pants too much.
Yeah.
As almost a 50-year-old man, I got plenty of samples for you.
No, there's no anti-doping testing, call it drug testing or things like this, and
right.
World
Championships, World Championships, legal thing, yeah.
Yeah, World Championships had drug testing.
The previous World Championships.
Yes, they had podium for sure. It might have been podium +2. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
The ITA, Independent Testing Agency.
How long does that take, though?
You would have to ask the podium finishers. I think Lionel might have talked about it. No, Jackie Godby talked about it at one point.
Okay.
What happened? Because she finished on the podium.
See, from a broadcaster standpoint, like for the audience member, like, is this getting faster? Like, is the verification getting faster? Regardless of who crossed the line on the avatar or whatever. I mean, that's a whole other issue. But the podium, somebody finishes, like today in the Giro, somebody finishes, they cross the line, we pull the podium, or we pull the GC, we pull the points leader, and we pull whatever, 2 randoms, and they go right into the truck, pee, blood, whatever they need to do, and within 30 minutes they're on the podium.
Yeah, but they're not cleared from the doping test.
No, that's cleared from the doping test, like on a real life event.
No, they're not cleared from the doping test. Some of the tests can't be done on site. Some of these tests have to be done in specific labs.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
some of these doping tests just for a single test to process can take 2 weeks. To test one specific marker can take 2 weeks. So what in real life events do? They put everything up there because they have to do it. It will not work like this, and they expect that the riders race clean.
Everyone expects the riders to race clean, but some don't. And whether it's biological or if it's like technological, is
it covered up by whoever if somebody gets tested positive? That's also one of those things.
That's all. Yeah, that's the thing. That's where you have a independent, like a third party that's doing the testing, right?
But even then, I mean, looking back at the Armstrong era,
Correct. Yeah. So that's where it's like goes back to the Olympics or the UCI. It's like there's always going to be a question or a scrutiny, right? And so your goal, IndieVelo, like you, Bjoern, yourself personally, and the whole goal is to have the least amount of speculation, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I even have one goal set aside, which is kind of part of it, but feeds more into the anti-doping part of it as well, which we have had communications with some researchers who work closely with WADA and develop new methods and protocols with it, but to actually use all this data we collect, and there has been some research gone into it, to use this data to also identify the use of performance-enhancing drugs, which is possible. And I even brought this up to the UCI. I said, if we collect from a few World Tour riders all performance data, 365 days a year, training data plus race data, every ride, power meter, heart rate data, and so on. I said, there's a lot of things we can do with this data, and we can identify on this data. But it comes again, if the athletes plus the governance wants this, will it help the sport to grow to something bigger and better? Most likely not. That's just the thing. The in real life sport is already there. I mean, there's currently tests running which uses data from track and field athletes to identify potential anti-doping as well.
Anomalies that show up.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about statistics. At the end, it's the statistics, and I mean, the biological passport is based on statistics as well. And it's not 100%, but it helps identify certain things. And probably athletes have been treated unfair using the biological passport in the past, but at least there's a system in place which can help and will provide peace to some athletes, to some spectators, to some media coverages, to maybe the governance, to the organizers, but to some other ones it says it doesn't matter if we do this testing or if we don't do this testing. I see the sport the same, and there will be always some dopers in there, or there will be always some cheaters in the field. And and it's hard to please everybody.
That leads into another question of like, for the longest time for me is like the mentality of, if somebody's getting beat in Zwift or IndieVelo or something, they're like, it's cheating right away. Like, you're not really, it's like, no. That's the mentality we don't want. What we want is, we want people to go, hey, I just got beat fair and square. And then if the light shines down, that's the thing, is there's this rampant negative connotation of, if you are getting beat, you're getting beat because someone's got the miscalibrated data, or they're on a wheel-on trainer, or it's like, that is not helping the sport. And that's sort of, it goes into two things, like kind of like the final questions here is, because I want you to touch on the bots, the growth of bots in IndieVelo, because I'm a big fan of bots, but the future of like IndieVelo and the future of e-cycling as a sport, like, what do you see? Like, what are the things that you want to see?
If I talk about the highest and the top level of the sport, I would love to see different races on different platforms, and having series across these different platforms as well, so that athletes can use their skills they have built and developed on each of those platforms and actually demonstrate those. I think that would be something pretty cool and great to see, because at the end, I said it yesterday to some folks out there who were complaining, and the typical bitching which is happening right now. This is too expensive. This graphic sucks. The physics here are not bad, are not good. I said, you're doing this for fun and enjoyment. Just race where you enjoy it, and just give it. Just send it. And have a blast doing it. Just
jump in and do a race.
Everything else doesn't really matter at this point for you. So from this point on the more community type level, I think on the community level, a lot can be done to enhance the experience for a lot of the community racers when it comes to fair racing, because on the community level, there's a lot of the stuff which is happening there. A lot of it is unintentional from the people who are doing it. People jump on Zwift, to the Zwift Racing League, and who weighs himself every 2 days on a scale and updates their weight on Zwift?
I did.
Yeah, because you cared about it, but there's a lot of the community guys out there.
I don't care anymore
out there who are doing this for fun and for the pleasure of it. They
it was a learning experience. Yes.
They want to fun. They want the social experience with their peers around the world, talking to them on Discord or other voice apps, and enjoying it. So their weight fluctuates up and down around the same time, so they just keep it entered. I had conversations with folks about it, and they keep it at the same time. But so this is this is intentional and unintentional. Same with calibrations of trainers. People are new to it, or they don't even realize they need to calibrate their trainers. We had this on IndieVelo where new folks come in, and we turned the automated verification up a little bit, which would identify miscalibrated equipment really quickly. And so these folks got kicked out of the race immediately, and we got a lot of discussions happening afterwards. But it goes to the point of the education for the rider, what is necessary to do to enter certain events or certain races if they want to race this level.
Yeah. So I have a question about this. Like, this is a little side question inside the finals questions here, but I'm of the thought that the train, obviously there's the what is it? The accuracy of the trainer is key, of course, but like brands, like if a team is sponsored by a trainer, why does the World Championships have to have the one single trainer? Like a sponsorship, I understand, like, hey, you're going to do our race on our trainer because we're sponsoring the UCI. But if it's like, hey, I race for a certain trainer company, because if the sport grows and we get sponsorships and they're like, hey, we have this trainer and we want to do this, the rider should be able to ride on the trainer that they're sponsored by. And then performance and verification should be able to go, okay, this is cool. This is, or is that a bigger thing? Like it's better for you guys to have everyone on the same trainer.
We didn't make this choice.
Okay. But does it matter? So my question still stands.
It goes down to
does it matter to you?
It goes down to sponsorship.
Okay, it's a sponsorship thing.
The UCI was sponsored by Wahoo.
Got it.
Everybody has to be on their Wahoo trainer.
But does it matter for performance verification and IndieVelo? Does it matter?
People use what they like to use.
Okay.
If we receive the data, when George and I have communicated to the major trainer manufacturers and just requested certain codes to be able to process them from trainers, and most of them have provided the information we asked for. George has received it and added the code into the game. So from this point, no, it doesn't matter to us.
Okay, because there's athletes that say it's better to have all. I don't know.
I'm just talking about the data receiving.
Right. So,
if you talk about accuracy is that's a big. There's accuracy and there's precision. And you want anyways.
Right. But the athletes are, so I remember hearing some athletes saying there's people riding on Sarah's trainers or like the Hammer 3 or whatever, and it's falls in line where they're like, hey, it should be all the same trainer. Like everybody should have all the same trainer. Is that like old thought process? Because you guys, like you just said, it doesn't matter to us. We can just verify whoever's verified.
Well, using the same trainer creates from the point of how the equipment how the equipment functions, because each trainer from a different manufacturer functions differently, measures power or calculates power, and uses different technology from flywheels, belt driven to electromagnetic motors and virtual flywheels, magnetic coils. Anyways,
but is that similar to like different bike makes? Or do bikes function the same and trainers function differently than like, hey, I'm on a trek versus a canyon out on the road?
Yeah, I would compare it more to the e-bikes and thinking about mountain bike, e-bike world championships. So
you got to explain that.
There's mountain bike, e-bike world championships, and the requirement for somebody to participate at these UCI World Championships e-biking, it's a cross-country type race, is that the battery has to be a certain size, that the torque for the engine has to be up to a specific spec. But the brand, what is used as the engine and the battery does not matter.
Okay.
As long as the equipment falls within specific parameters, specifications.
The make and model doesn't matter. It's just a matter of the core thing that the UCI decided, which was the battery.
Well, limitations. Like, they provided limitations, correct?
You could have like Sagan raced on a Specialized because he's sponsored by Specialized. But if somebody had, and he has a battery that's under the regulation,
he might have used the Bosch engine, and then somebody else
Bosch and somebody,
and then
okay. So that was it. Now back to the future of e-cycling and how you guys are integrating like your future stuff and the future of the sport itself, but also if you can touch on some bots, if you can, because
well, you said about the one thing was about speeding up verification. This all depends of how we can collect the data, and if the data we receive from platforms cannot be collected easily, then the speed of verification is just limited.
obviously. So it's a handshake between the developers, the performance verification, and gathering all that data, right?
And what the reasons are, I have to speculate about it. It's all fine.
But just from a grand thought of like the future, besides gathering data, we always want to gather more data.
I said about something more cross-platform wide, using, for my end, using similar backends which provide the data analytics and verification tools for all these race organizers who want to put on races on different platforms, that they can trust what is coming from those platforms, the data, and what is being used in regards to a tool to analyze all these performances, because at the end we're dealing with data coming from platforms. Most of the stuff which has to be verified can be verified within seconds or minutes if it's received properly, and if platforms can work on the same level of it, then the sport can move to a way higher level where you say, okay, we have a racing league on this platform and then a different league on this platform. Then maybe they cross over a little bit, but the data is received in similar ways and gets analyzed in the same way on this engine, and it spits out the results and the red flags to the organizers, and then they can do with it whatever they want. Will the sport grow more or faster? I have no idea.
Do you want it to grow more and faster?
I think, I have this book which I'm writing. I don't know if I will ever publish it. It's called Virtual Cycling or Virtual Esports, The Lost Decade.
Oh.
I think the sport could have been way further ahead than it is right now, because there was a lot of time spent which was not spent on the sport of bike racing.
Yeah.
When we talk about it as a sport, there was time spent on other parts of it, which is great. Social experience, training, and so on. But at the end, the core bike racers who virtually ride and see it as a pure sport, the number of those is not really high.
I think we've talked about this too in the past on the show, is like, CVR World Cup was doing this, 6-7 years ago, and they really didn't catch up to what CVR World Cup was doing until 2 years ago. So when you say that there's this gap, there really was a gap where no one kind of took over from that.
Yeah,
and there was not only Swift, there was other platforms too who could have taken over the gap, and nothing happened. It's just what it is. I mean, COVID years happened. COVID years created different problems for a lot of businesses and platforms, meaning growth. And growth is never a bad thing, but growth also can bring a lot of problems down the road when growth has stagnated and maybe even reverses itself again. So, so that's just it's hard. I mean, it's not easy, but. Let's go to the bots.
Let's go to the bots, because
bots are fun.
I just thought of this too, because the way that because we talked about this earlier, and it was great to get some clarity on it, is like a testing bed for you guys. IndieVelo is like a place where, hey, this is the list. This is where we can do this. We can actually do this instead of just talk about it, have a list of it. You're doing it. And it's like I wrote this down, like, does George do everything? Like it's like what, like people that don't know, IndieVelo is like every Monday there's an email that comes out and there's like, here's all the student news stuff. And I've actually been saying stuff, and Bjoern and I talk offline, and I brought up a little thing, like I was on my stream talking about this thing, and it's like that clock is already showing up. So like features are already showing up, and it's like, there's this sort of like stigma. This is what I talked about earlier about, oh, they're just trying to do, they're not. And I picked that up when you guys were like, I think I was talking to RC Ivany about how one of your clients, by the way, Shout out to your business.
Yeah.
How you guys have your goal. Your goal was racing, like dial in and racing so much, because like I'm with you on the, hey, let me seek out a race and just jump into a race, like driven by a race. So going into the future of like where you guys are going, like the bots, I love racing the bots. So tell us about the bots, please, and then we'll wrap up, because I want to talk about more robots.
Well, IndieVelo has bots, and the bot AI, or call it their characteristic and behavior, improves all the time. And I think what we're trying to do, based on the feedback we provide, the bots not to be purely human characteristic cyclists, but also to be something completely unhuman characteristics in the form of cycling. Because if you want to be pushed to be better, you can't always follow something what you expect. And the bots can be really useful and helpful to push you to ride and race differently than you would normally do it if there would be only humans in the field. So that's one of the unique things with the bots. And I mean, IndieVelo has this matchmaking built in where you organize your own event which will start 5 minutes later. You have a 5-minute lead time. The event is set up on the server. You go in the pens, and then you can have a race just by yourself against 200 bots. And these 200 bots will be matchmade against your abilities. Some of them will be better climbers than you. Some of them will be better time trialers, some better endurance, some better sprinters.
So are they matchmade to you based on the data that you have on me, or are they matched on the data that I've inputted myself?
Matchmade on the data which is in the game from yourself, collected over.
So if I
over history, if you don't ride for 90 days, or ride easy over 90, it's a rolling 90-day calculation we are using currently.
So you dump the old stuff, even though let's say I've been outside riding or riding on another platform. Yeah, you don't have that data.
Your critical power curve changes in the game right now, because we don't, at this point, there's a concept also floating around where we can feed outside data into the platform.
Okay.
And use this for verification, which it's something which is not working at this point, but the concept is out there and might be in progress or not.
Now there's people that don't want to give you the data.
Yeah.
But then there's people that, like me, would be like, hey, give all the data. So when I show up in an IndieVelo race, I'm racing the bots and they know who I am right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's very cool.
Yeah. And currently there's, from a group of folks out there, they want to have bots which push them way harder than they would ride, or even bots which...
The bots have been whooping my butt lately.
So at this point, George added the feature of passive bots into somebody who wants to organize events, meaning they don't want the bots to be too aggressive, so you just ride with the bots more, even in a race. But we can also talked about it today, even that we can make the bots as short as, quote, eye-watering aggressive, and or with artificially inflated critical power and W prime numbers and so on. So creating bots which have World Tour Pro numbers, like
randomly show up to your race,
which you could select. You want these type of extra hard bots within your race.
Can you select it to say you don't know if you have it this race, or that like it would randomly? Well,
we haven't. This was just something we discussed about.
Right, you've discussed, but like, so there could be like, oh, I know this race is going to have a World Tour in there. It's going to rip me apart. But what if you're like, I don't know which one that you just have that like selected, and then it would show.
Well, you wouldn't know which one. Yeah. No, you wouldn't.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it may be on the rankings list. You would be number one ranked, but that's something we.
Oh yeah. We should touch on this. The ranking in IndieVelo.
Yeah, ranking and ratings. Yes.
Ranking and ratings is like I'm a gold time trialist now.
We just talked about it today somewhere here on.
So that's also a big thing too. That's one of the big features. Is you guys have a ranking system where it's like you put out a good effort, you get points to then push you up, and it kind of slots you into a profile.
Yeah. Well, there's the curves right now, which just show you how you progress within the races. You move through the colors and the awards from bronze to gold to diamond and platinum and whatever else is out there, which is currently fairly private, but we're also working on creating a public ranking for this more, which also then having a separate bot ranking, which shows the bots are ranked. The bots just were renamed, so most of them, which makes it a lot harder to actually now identify who's a bot or not, because now they actually have full-on match names to their countries. And,
how do you know?
We did this.
No, I know you did this, but how do you know that that's actually like, Joe Smith could be in Vancouver, Canada.
Correct. Could be. That's the thing.
He could be from mainland China.
Yeah.
Joe Smith.
Yeah. Could be.
So, could be.
Oh yeah, but well, there's also the odds. Somebody with a.
See, I know. The thing is, those
somebody with a different, let's call it a North American name, might be also having a Southeast Asia country flag. This also is built in. It's not just the pure matching.
So I'll bring this up when we have George on. I'll be like, is that wasted time for development? Like, does that waste his time?
We should have seen the folks who were asked to provide names for the countries.
I know.
How fast
that.
everybody jumped on this. You saw
I lurk a lot.
I
did see it. So.
But yeah, I mean, with the matchmaking, I mean, one of those things what a lot of folks on now is then if you have never raced on IndieVelo and you jump in your first race, you of course could be uncertain about your matchmaking. You might be racing really weak people. So the most important thing about it is that of course your weight and your FTP
that
are as accurate as possible in the first race. If you just enter really low FTP, then you have a race which is way too easy for you in the first one. But after the first one, things pick up really quickly.
It balances quickly. Because I remember when I was first when I would get frustrated, there would be nobody racing on Zwift.
Yeah.
I would come over to IndieVelo, and I'm like, I'll just race some bots, and I'm just whooping the bots. And then all of a sudden, the next couple races, like I would do it like week one, like week 2 or 3, and I would do like one race here and there.
Yeah.
I was getting smoked by they would do breakaways and they would counterattack me and all these other things, and I'm just like, wow, this is quick. Obviously, you were telling us like, hey, we've been playing with the AI.
And they attack on the off-wind side now too. I mean, they launch their attacks. They're not riding just through the field. They're off the field on the gutter. So if you want to jump with them, you have to put yourself on the same side of the road first of all, or you're not getting a draft until they move back onto the race line a little bit more, anyways. But I mean, we have in the open community forum, we have this channel which is called Meet the Bots, which one of the folks started. And I mean, the love some of those folks put into the bots, racing them, and the enjoyment people get out of it. For me, it's just racing bots, part of a league and a series. It's just something which I would completely evolve myself in. Like for me, this would be when we talk about sport and gaming. Virtually racing the bots and in a league and a series and have the same bots going over and over.
That's what happened when I was doing that in RGT. Was I would get lost.
I would get lost there. Like I would just never leave it again, I think.
I would do that. I would race against certain bots. Like there was a couple bots that just had my number, or they were lightweight. And that's the thing is you can build a relationship with the bots to go, hey, this person. That's why I like your guys's. Hey, maybe we can throw some new ones in.
The first impression people have, and everybody has their opinion and can criticize bots as well, and saying there's too many bots and there's no humans. And I mean, George said it recently in an interview, I think on the Road CC interview, which was
I didn't listen
with Christopher Schwenker, I think, together. But George said the user base is over 20,000 right now in IndieVelo. And so 20,000 is substantial, and knowing numbers, having 1,000 unique users per day floating around. Yes, there's also 3,000 bots riding around at any time. But and then in these races, people don't like, say, initially they say, I don't like bots. I don't want to race against bots. Because there's something against this bots, against this AI, but AI is building the future for everything. AI makes it really simple. On the game, it makes it so simple for you just to have fun.
It does. That's why I was asking you. Can it learn over time? That's the thing, is the deep learning, the AI of it. It's like getting more data in is going to benefit us, and we're going to have a better experience, because I'm already having a better experience with the bots.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if humans come in there, it'd be great.
Most people joining and just testing it and then riding it with the bots, they develop then this relationship with the bots.
It's that hurdle to turn off that sort of like, oh, it's not a human. It's that community thing. It's like, look, you got to move on to go, hey, this is something new.
But it goes,
and learn from it.
It goes back to the point is, ride and race wherever you have the most fun of it and just do it. I mean, that's for me. Yeah. It doesn't matter which platform people use and ride and complain about. The complaining is a new thing in our world. It has gotten worse over the years, and everybody needs to complain about something, and it just drives me crazy. It drives most people crazy, and but everybody has something they want to complain about. So
I complain to get better.
Yeah, that's not
the thing.
bad. I mean, by the way, shout out, most impressive stream you did recently, riding outside.
Oh, you like that?
Well, riding outside with your GoPro on there, streaming through Twitch.
No, my phone.
Or phone.
Just my phone.
Phone on a chest mount? Holy smokes.
No, phone on just a Garmin mount. It was whatever, quad.
And
having a conversation.
The chat read to you in your ears through AI.
Yeah. Correct.
It was cool. I think it was cool. I thought
I'm going to do it more. I just ordered a new.
I thought about it. I said, maybe I do this when I'm going mountain biking on trail.
Well, you can do your was it 95-kilometer ride to school? You can do that.
Yeah, no, I'm done.
You're done with those?
Like an 8 and 10-year-old kid who demand my time. My 8-year-old, he jumps bikes.
Oh yeah.
Bigger than I would have ever thought about it on a mountain bike. So it's anyways, yeah.
All right. I think that's it, Bjoern.
Cool.
We're done. Don't cut off the screen or the stream.
Was there any questions?
No. Any questions from the chat? That we want to go to questions from the chat.
No, I don't. But
I think we actually went through the one question from Barney earlier.
People just like listening to maybe my questions. Do I have any more? Let's see. I got all my
only
questions.
Barney listened. That's okay.
Yeah, I think I covered most things. Yeah, I think we're good. Bjoern?
Yeah, awesome.
Any final thoughts?
No, it's fun.
It's very fun.
Keep riding, keep streaming, keep having fun. Whatever people want to do. Whatever, yeah, exactly.
Oh, no. Last thing. This is a call to get as many people on IndieVelo so we can try to slam the servers. So I got to create an event. I'm going to learn how to create an event. I probably know how to. I just never have. Do you think we're going to be able to crash the servers if we get enough people? If we had all 20,000 people hit an event.
Based on what George said today, I have to quickly check here.
Your backbone, your server backbone is good.
There's a lot of movement right now. That's something for me. There's a lot of movement of riders right now between platforms. So people leave Swift, go to Whoosh.
Okay.
People try IndieVelo. So it's going to be really interesting, he said, if platforms collapse under the weight of extra riders.
That's what we want to try to do.
No, RGT races were limited in size.
They were. I know.
There's a reason why. There's a reason why.
I was going to, because their infrastructure, they didn't build it so they could handle it much
single
more.
server
I don't know
mode.
why. Do you know why? Can you even talk about why?
Well, George said it was they used a single server mode.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah.
Was that to maintain visuals, like the server, like it was single server, so like it wasn't spread across? Is that why you guys split up your guys's pins? Do you guys do a different? I don't know. That's probably a George question.
Yeah, that's George.
Because you guys say like let's say the pin is split up. It's like, oh, there's going to be people in your pin only holds like 15 people or whatever it is, and then you have different pins, and then everyone starts at the same time.
A pen can hold as many as you want. The pen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if there's
200
humans or 10,000 humans joining and all different abilities, and you split pens, then you could have 5,000 in pen one and 1,000 in all of the other ones potentially. So I think people just need to try it and see if you can crash it, or if the servers need to be upscaled or not. If you crash it, you get a custom jersey, and you said if you don't crash it, you also want a custom jersey. So, yeah.
The thumbs down, thumbs up or thumbs down.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Now we can play the music. Bjoern.
Thank you, guys.
Ossenbrink. Thank you very much for
having us on.
Thank you for coming on our show.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.